Welcome to More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. This is a podcast that highlights the amazing acts of service that lawyers perform all over the country. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinxcrow.com. Now here's the host of More Than a Lawyer, Christy Crow.
Welcome back to More Than a Lawyer. We're so glad to have with us today Tanya Jeffords, who is over in Augusta, Georgia, and we're very grateful, Tanya, that you're able to join us today and that your home and your office avoided most of the worst part of the storms that recently came through the Southeast. So thank you for being here and answered prayers about being safe from the storm. I know there are a lot of people that weren't. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So Tanya, I know you have an office in Augusta and also one in Aiken, and we're going to talk a lot about what you do outside the practice of law in a few minutes. But first, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your law firm? The law firm name is Tanya Jeffords Associates. So you're a woman-owned law firm, a woman after my own heart. So tell us a little bit about your firm and what you do over there in Georgia and South Carolina.
Well, we are criminal and civil trial lawyers. We do criminal law, civil rights violations, employment and labor law, and personal injury cases. We have a staff of about 8, 4 attorneys, and the rest legal staff, paralegals, and intake specialists. And, our motto is preparation, the power of prayer. We fight for what is fair. And we generally have an office in Aiken, like you said. I have an office here in Augusta, and we have some remote attorneys who are licensed in multiple different states to practice law. And so basically, we just try and help people in our community who are facing, criminal and civil issues, concentrating with employment and labor law, personal injury cases, and civil rights violations and criminal trials.
And you've been over in Georgia for a long time. I know you were very involved with Mercer, where you went to law school, and I know you've got a passion for that. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with Mercer and the law school there.
Right. I graduated in 2001, and I clerked for federal judge Louis Sands after that in Albany, Georgia. And he's a Mercer grad, double bear. And so he just really had a really big impact on my life in the situation of being able to give back. So his Legal Eagles, which all of us are called, we have a scholarship in his name. And I'm also the alumni board president for this term. This is my second year, I think. And so it's been good because I try and give back to law students what's been given to me. I think, I can just say that the law has been good to me and has given me a lot of the ability to take care of my family, help my community, and do the things that I wanted to do professionally, as well as spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. So the law has been good to me. I got that from Mercer, and they were good to me. So I try and give back as much as I can, particularly since it is such a demanding field.
It certainly is, but it's good to have mentors that are a few years ahead of you in the field that you can look up to. So I know the students that are coming out of Mercer and going into clerkships. I know Judge Sands is retired now. He was an amazing judge for a long time over there in Albany, but I know that it's great to honor his legacy through the Legal Eagles. I did not know that's what y'all called the former clerks of Judge Sands, but that's a great nickname, and it's a great way to honor Mercer. It's a beautiful campus and a beautiful university.
And we hire Mercer lawyers. Erin Wingo is one of my associates, and she's a Mercer lawyer. And, generally try and give anybody here a place to land if they come to the Augusta area, to continue the legacy.
That's awesome. Well, I know we could probably talk for the entire time about what you do within your practice, because especially if you do criminal and civil work, I'm sure that keeps you very busy. But as you know, the focus of this podcast is what lawyers do outside the classroom and outside the practice of law. And I'm guessing if we started listing all the things you do in your community, we could be here all day for that too. But one thing we're going to focus today on is Dream Builders of America Youth Inc. Did I get that right?
Yes. Dream Builders of America's Youth.
Well, tell me a little bit about what Dream Builders of America's Youth is and how you came up with this concept and what you're doing in your community with it.
Well, that's interesting because, again, it goes back to Judge Sands. I was living in Albany, Georgia, And I had just gotten married. Mind you, I got married the Thursday before I graduated from law school because I wanted to commit to my home and my family first. Graduated that Saturday, went to Albany to clerk with Judge Sands, and he asked me to do a class with him in his Jackie Robinson Foundation with some young people. And so I went and I worked with the young people, and then it just came back, and I realized that our kids were lacking confidence, and character building. And so that's when I sat down with some people in Albany, Georgia, Dr. Mike Satchel, Johnny Graham, who was a lawyer down there, and Tarsha and Stan Davis. And we began Dream Builders of America's Youth along with my husband, Bill Jeffords. And it's a nonprofit that we've had for over 20 plus years. And we created the Dream Plan Achieve program. So it's a 6 to 12 session program, and it went into the school system where they built a dream board. This is kind of before The Secret now. They built a dream board. They built a written plan for a ladder of success, and we just loved it. And we just saw the kids be able to have a vision, right? Without vision, you perish. And so we started that back in 2002. Then I moved back home after, my clerkship ended. I came back here and worked for a civil law firm. They were very good to me, Fulcher Hagler, and allowed me to continue with that. I actually traveled back and forth to Albany for a while. And then I think about 2010, I was in a bar meeting, and they said that they were determining the number of prisons to build by the reading level of the kids in the third grade. And that's when we began the Frederick Douglass Mobile Reading Room. And so that's near and dear to my heart because Frederick Douglass is my great-great-granduncle as far as I've been told my whole life. And I've always looked up to him, revered him. And reading, of course, was what helped him to be the great orator and abolitionist that he was. So that's what we have, was this mobile reading room that my mom said, hey, and then you have to take it to the people, right? And so we've gone to different neighborhoods in our area that would be considered like the low-income areas, and where I think the kids needed the help the most. So we started at Sunset, we went to Barton Village, we are now in River Glen, Magnolia Court, and I have just a dedicated group of, probably 10 to 15 volunteers who've just been with us for a long time. And we have a reading program, and we go to the Purpose Center. We connected with the Chosen Church, and we were able to bus our kids from there to the Purpose Center. And they read on Fridays. It's really awesome because it gives the volunteers, which was our whole purpose, an opportunity to give back. So as I had my own firm and stopped working for other people, and said Fridays, I just have an admin day. People who work for me who want to be involved, we get off, we go, and we read to the kids, and we feed them, and we take them on special trips to colleges and different places like that. And to me, that's the best way to end the week.
That is amazing. And I cannot wait to delve into that a little bit more because it sounds like, first of all, you're very entrepreneurial, obviously, because you've started 2 nonprofits and your own law firm. So you have a huge spirit for that. But how did you identify that reading groups would be the best way to serve your community?
Well, it was based upon that statistic. One of my big passions is I want to stop the pipeline to the prison and the graveyard, right? I'm a criminal defense attorney. I see young kids who've made mistakes that just have had a lifelong impact on them, and people convicted of crimes. And I just feel like prevention is the key. And I also think it's very important when you're a lawyer, we fight, right? We believe in preparation and power of prayer, and we fight. You have to fight with judges, with prosecutors, with people. And so really you have to always look at something to balance you out. And I think when you work on the prevention side of people never having to get into the legal system at all, that's where you find your joy. So at the end of the day, while sometimes it seems like you're doing more, in reality, I think it's what keeps me personally grounded to be able to continue the work that I do. When I see those little kids' faces, and I know that statistically they might be marked for the prison system, but if we can intervene now, with the reading level and helping them, inspiring them to read. And I'll be very clear, I'm not a teacher. My volunteers are not normally teachers. We want to inspire them to love to read so that in their spare time they would read. I really wanted them to have I wanted them to have what my son had. right? Like I read to my son from the very beginning. Like, so at this point, he reads on his own before he goes to bed every night, right? He can score a 1430 on an SAT because of it, probably, right?
Right.
So I wanted them to have that same experience. And what's funny, this through the storm, my kids were displaced. They didn't have food. They didn't have lights. They didn't have anything. And when I went over there to just try and kind of, our team went over to kind of help out and help feed everybody. My kids said, "Oh, well, I just read some books, Miss Jeffords." And I was like, "We did it."
Right.
If you're reading by flashlight, then I feel like we've succeeded. And so
That's a huge success story.
to feed them each week, make sure that they get organic juices and fruit. My husband brings fruit for them every week. It's just it's rewarding, and I think that's what we need to do as lawyers to kind of balance yourself out. It's a lot easier to continue on in this practice, which is so demanding, if you know that actually your career is helping people to not be in the legal system.
Amen. So if somebody listens to this and is inspired and says, "Hey, I want to get involved. I want to start a reading group in our town." There are obviously kids in need in every city and town in the United States. Tell us about the first steps you took. How did you find a place to do this? How did you identify kids that would benefit from this? Those kind of things.
Well, the first thing we did is we established how the reading room is going to work. So the fun thing is that they earn bucks every week for showing up, for being on time, for standing up and saying their name, for each book that they read and what they understand about what they read. And then they get a buck for knowing our motto, which is I read to succeed. And look, listen, and learn. Look at who's talking, listen to who's talking, learn from who's talking. So they earn those bucks, fake bucks each week, right? So that's their incentive, and they get food. So then I just identified those communities in my area that were in the most need. Then I went to my city in Augusta, and we began in like the centers that the city had. So I think you can reach out to your city and say, is there a community center that we can use within that area, right? And they actually, my city, Augusta, used to give us like one of their employees would be there. We would come while they were working. So that was just part of the city. So I would encourage you to work within your city, because that's what we're all trying to do, is to make it a better place. So go to your city administrator, say you want to do this. I just learned this week, actually, that most mayors have a reading opportunity program that's been done nationally, where they have books for you to go and read to kids. It's a coloring book. I just learned this from a councilwoman in Grovetown here. So I think that's a great way. Just reach out and see if your city council is willing to, help you to create a reading program if you don't have your own nonprofit like we did. And then this past 3 years, we just connected with a church to also do it. The Purpose Center, they created this Purpose Center, and it's beautiful. And I would encourage lawyers to help out with that. This center was designed for kids to have a safe place to go. It has a basketball court. It has, all sorts of games, and they have Fun Friday, and they have Men in Training. They have all sorts of other programs. So Dream Builders just goes in, and we're one of the programs. We read within that community, and they provide a bus, and we take our kids over there and we come back. So I think even helping to build those other communities where you're at, there's so many kids out there in need, and there's so many nonprofits that are already doing something. I would connect with another nonprofit and say, hey, we want to help you. You don't have to create it from scratch, kind of like we did. I think you can just join any of your groups, your bar association. They could create their own reading program.
Well, we could talk all day about this reading program, because I'm fascinated by everything you're doing in Augusta. But one of the things that a lot of lawyers seem to have trouble with is balancing the time they need to spend practicing law and time doing things outside of the courtroom. How do you create opportunities for yourself and for members of your team to volunteer in the Frederick Douglass Reading Group or whatever their passion project might be?
I've just always felt like it's a part of what you do as a lawyer. So I don't really consider it to be separate. On my calendar is time to give back, right? So like I said, on Fridays, we have administrative day and we get the bucks ready. We get everything ready. Anybody who's working for me, is going to come in and they're going to help work and do the reading room and get it prepared. They don't have to go out and read. They might be the one who orders the pizza. They might get the banks together. So it's just kind of a team effort in that way. And I think that when you own your own, of course, you can kind of make it a part of your firm culture. It's a part of my firm culture that people that I hire and people who come here, have a sense of service to the community, not just within Dream Builders, but outside of it too. I mean, one of my girls used to bring, and we also do drug court, so that's another one. I'm also the lawyer for drug court, so helped create that 17 years ago. So that's another give back to the community where you want to see the justice system actually rehabilitating and helping people. So I think that you should also go, if you're not working for yourself, I think you go with firms that's part of their culture, right? That we will support you in giving back to the community and doing those things. And I think if you do that, you will have lawyers who are more balanced. This hurricane that came through where, people just didn't have food. They didn't have lights. They didn't have water. I mean, I was so proud of my team where they're like, let's go. Let's go. What do we need? Where do we get boxes of food? That's just, it should be a part of the firm culture.
Well, it's great that you have developed that firm culture at your firm, because I know from doing this work and trying to call out the great things that lawyers do in their community, that some firms are more receptive to that than others. If a lawyer is watching this and says, well, okay, I may not have that firm culture right now, but I want that in my firm, how would you suggest that someone who is a managing partner at a firm or an owner of a firm develop that firm culture within their own law firm?
Well, I think if you don't have something yourself that you're already interested in, find out what your employees are interested in. You can do that when you interview them. I can say that the firm that I first worked for when I left Judge Sands, part of my interview was about Dream Builders. They were very interested in that. And so when I needed to go to Albany to do a class, that was part of my billable hours and it wasn't taken away from me. So, and that was one of our larger firms here. So I've always appreciated that they did that for me. So when I created my own, I wanted to have the same sort of situation. And, the Hawk firm will do the same thing here too. So I just think ask your employees what they want. What do they like? I think one incentive you could be is, okay, I will donate. If you don't want to give time, you can always give money, and those are two different things. And both of them are needed to get to the goal. So you could donate to your employees, charity of choice if they're involved with domestic violence, if they're involved with, running for a cause or whatever. Just find out who they are and what they are interested in if you don't have something yourself. And then I think you bring them to the table if there's some need in the community. Just get with your other local lawyers. I feel like lawyers, you get a law degree to help people. And so if you find that as to be a part of your week, then the long hours that you have to do in order to make it and to be successful, it just has more meaning and it gives you that little strength to keep on going. I know that's what it does for me, right? When I finally said Fridays, admin day, going to focus on, giving to the kids, doing what we need to do. I can make some phone calls after that. I can do what else I need to do, financial Fridays and do whatever. But that has made a huge difference for me. And we don't do it during the summer. So I have summers off with my family, but we do,
Yeah.
You can just schedule it however you want to. I'm just saying, schedule in what can bring you joy. And if it doesn't bring you joy, money really helps. So just give money. Some people, they don't want to be, they're not going to go afterwards and spend their time, reading to kids and being with kids. But, you might be the person that connects them to a resource. You don't have to do it. Everybody's got their time, their talent, and you just have to figure out what yours is, what God put you here to do, and use your resources to do that. And you can do that within your firm culture from the top down or from the bottom up by investing in what your employees want to do.
And I know you've said that doing this with your employees has helped keep them balanced. What kind of positive impact have you seen that has occurred because of your work with the reading group or the dream builders that you can like point to and say, this is something that where it's positively impacted my firm, either financially or firm health because of the culture, and how has that encouraged you to keep it going?
I think this hurricane really showed me because, I have a new associate, young lawyer, Mercer grad, and she's been with me a little bit over 2 years. Just got barred in South Carolina, is now barred in both states, Miss Wingo, and she just came up and was like, what can I do? Right? So she went and, brought the pizza out. She sent letters out. I was sitting outside waiting for the truck. It was so funny because Georgia Power sent like 5,000 boxes of food here. Right. But the truck was delayed and delayed and delayed. So we started waiting for the truck by 3:00. Didn't come. 5:00 came. I was sitting on the porch like, I don't know, guys, when the truck is going to come. But my employees were, sitting out there waiting on the truck. And, we went and we actually served that food. And then when another employee came back and said, look, I've got all of these dresses. I have dresses and all this. You want to go ahead and give these to the people? So she brought all of her stuff. So, that's just been something that's been consistent over the time period. So to me, when I saw that during the hurricane, that they came up and wanted to do all of those things, I was proud of everybody. And that said to me that we're on the right path, with balancing out. And I'm trying to teach, the young lawyers that I come into contact with about that as a practice, that don't get so caught up in everything that you do day to day with your work that you don't take time out to do the things that you love to do, right? That's what happens, and that's where burnout comes in. If you can come back and say, well, I got to put this in with that meeting, with that class, with that group, you're going to be a happier, more well-rounded person.
Amen. And that's one reason I started this podcast, is to share ideas and inspirational stories like yours to help people find their own inspiration. So this being the More Than a Lawyer podcast, you know what I'm going to have to ask you, Tanya. What does being more than a lawyer mean to you?
Success to me is defined by my faith, doing what God called me to do. 2, being able to be with my family and be there for my kids, right? And that includes the Dream Builders kids and my own kids, and being able to make sure that I make their games and do all of those things. Success is being able to be healthy through it. As you get older, pain comes. But I have found that that's important, to get mentally balanced, and the services allow me to be mentally, I think, and physically balanced in that way. And then, success begins to change as you practice longer. Like for me, winning a case for me is like, oh my gosh, maybe I'll get to get a bus for those kids, but I don't have to worry about it. Maybe I could put them all in common, and then, into the learning center. And if I could, afford to do something like that. So success gets defined differently outside of yourself. And that to me is what brings you joy. Love Jesus, love others, love yourself. That's kind of what I think about joy. And I think that we should work to live and not live to work, even though we have to work really hard. And I do, I work really hard, but I just find that it just keeps me balanced. So that would be my thing about what more than a lawyer. What did we become lawyers for? I mean, at the end of the day, my mom said, they probably won't even remember you if you just shut your business down tomorrow. But people will always remember how you made them feel or the impact you had on the future generations. I think we have a unique ability to do that as lawyers.
I agree, Tanya. And I really appreciate you coming on today in the midst of all the chaos as the recovery from the storm, and sharing your story with us. And I know it will inspire many others. And I love the tagline, love Jesus, love others, love yourself. That's a great leaving memento for what I'll remember you by. So thanks so much, Tanya, for being on More Than a Lawyer and sharing your story with us today.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is my first time doing, maybe I have done this before, but I just really enjoyed it to see how it all works. I love seeing you and being
You're a
on here.
natural. You should do
Yeah,
it more often. It'll promote Dream Builders and the Frederick Douglass Reading Group. More people will know about that now, hopefully, and maybe you'll get some more volunteers over in Augusta.
If anybody hears this and you have a bus that can be regularly driven by somebody, we are really, really, really looking for a bus that we can afford for our kids so that they can have the opportunities that you don't understand when sometimes parents don't have transportation. And so if we can help fill that void as a community, we're looking for a bus. I'm just telling you, that's my dream right now.
And we'll put in the show notes, we'll have some links to your social media and your website where people want to make donations. They can, and they can support the dream of a bus for your kids so that you can provide additional opportunities for them. So we'll put all that in the show notes as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been tuning into More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinxcrow.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.